everyone. It is my pleasure today to introduce the CEO, Lucas Stanfield of Union Star Metals, a junior miner that's been undergoing some pretty significant streamlining in the last 6 months or more. They are emerging as a focused US precious metals exploration company with much clearer strategy and a streamlined portfolio. The flagship asset is the Cobb Creek Gold Project, which houses the historic McColl gold deposit. And one of the key milestones that's happened recently is the identification of the central concealed target, which is an exploration target that looks pretty exciting, that has a shallow volcanic cover that could be hiding a significant gold system. The company's continued to progress permitting and environmental approvals to do the surveys ahead of maiden drilling for this one. They have also done some corporate streamlining as well, which I'm sure that Lucas will touch upon as well. So on that note, I will hand the reins over to Lucas to start the webinar.
Terrific. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for the intro, and welcome everyone that's joining us. It's good to be able to get a chance to get in front of shareholders and hopefully get some feedback on their take on the direction of Union Star, as well as give a bit more information on the background of what we've been up to in the last 6 to 12 months, really. What I thought I'd do, Anthony, is that I'll start with a short presentation. So I won't go through our full corporate presentation, but I'll go through probably 5 or 6 slides to really just set the scene where Union Star has positioned itself now, and then we'll throw back to you for some questions, and then open to the audience for further questions. I'd rather give the answers that people want to hear rather than tell them what I'm going to tell them. So let's start with the. Here we go. I'll share my screen. So we should be having the full screen mode. I'm hoping you can see my presentation now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, so as you said in your intro, Anthony, we're unlocking untested potential in Nevada. So Cobb Creek is our flagship project over in Nevada. It's a gold project, gold and silver project, and it's a real change from where we've been in the last, prior to me joining and change of management and so on. So quick understanding of Nevada and why it's interesting, and the investment highlights generally for the entire company. So Nevada's a tier 1 US jurisdiction. In fact, it's a global tier 1 jurisdiction, very similar organization over there as it is to WA. I like to basically compare Nevada very similar to the Western Australian gold market over here. Nevada itself hosts some major gold systems. In fact, I'll show you shortly a couple of major trends that are running through in Nevada that are producing millions of ounces annually. We've got, as you mentioned again in your introduction, at Cobb Creek, we've got a historical resource, 173,000 ounces, 1.44 grams per tonne gold. It's an NI 43-101 compliant resource. It's not a JORC compliant resource. But it was done by BHP, so it's been well done. It won't. We haven't gone into the converting it yet to JORC, but with BHP doing the background work, we're confident that that 173,000 ounces is real. We've got a large structurally controlled gold system, so we've got multiple targets. When we took on the project, there was about 11 targets, and they still remain. They're both epithermal and carbonate-hosted gold mineralizations. So the epithermal tend to be a little bit higher grade and smaller. The carbonate hosted tend to be lower grade and bigger. So we've got both potentials running through our property, which I'll get into a little bit into the presentation. And then we've also got some key catalysts coming up this year. So we've done a lot of geological interpretation work. We've got the permitting going on to allow the drilling towards the end of this drilling season, and we've also got some IP work that we'll be doing before that drilling commences this year. So we're basically, I think the saying is that if you want to find gold, you go where gold is. So we're in the right place. We're in Nevada. We're in the right trends. We've got a gold deposit on our project area, and then we've got lots of other things pointing towards the fact that there is more gold to be found. So just having a little bit of a look at Nevada. So as I said, tier 1 jurisdiction. It's a transparent permitting framework, quite an easy place to work. There's a few trends that are running through that area in Nevada. So we are in the Independence trend, which is up on the top right of that picture. There's the Carlin trend, which is just south of us. So people who are aware of Nevada may understand or heard of the Carlin-style deposits. So that's coming from that Carlin trend. Those Carlin-style deposits are found in these other trends as well, and that's one of the things that we're looking at as well. So looking for those carbonate-hosted Carlin-style trends. And sort of some of the other companies that are operating in that area and those trends there. So we've got Barrick and Newmont Gold are very active there, and then we've got a number of juniors as well. So it's one of those few places where you get juniors working alongside those big majors. So giving those juniors like ourselves the chance to make those large discoveries. So I'll just zoom in a little bit. So I'm zoomed in now onto the Independence trend that Cobb Creek is located. Cobb Creek is up the top there. So if we just up in the north there, and you can see McCall's project highlighted there. Just underneath that, we've got the Western Explorations projects, so the Dobie Gorge and the Gravel Creek projects. So they're over 1 million ounces together. And then just south of that is the Big Springs project, was owned by Capricorn, which has been in the process of being sold, I understand. But again, another 1 million ounces of resources, historic resource there. And then just south of that is the Jarrett Canyon deposit, which is owned by First Majestic in America. So Jarrett Canyon's an interesting one. It's had 9 million ounces taken from it to date. It's also just coming back out of its into a care of coming out of a care of maintenance. And the great thing about that is it's probably about 80 kilometres by road from our McCall project, and it's also side of a processing plant that could quite easily process the gold that's at McCall's, and also looking at any discoveries that we've got. We're in the right place. The Western Exploration projects have just recently had power, in the process of having grid power connected to their locations. So again, some great positives coming along there. And as I said earlier in the presentation, if you want to find gold, you've got to go where other people have already found gold. So looking at that, we've got Western Exploration 1 million ounces, Big Springs 1 million ounces, and Jarrett Canyon 9 million ounces, and we're right in that trend. So we're in the right spot as far as the trend goes. So then if I zoom in again a little bit closer, so it is a district scale land holding, so 33 square kilometres that we have. The picture that you can see there is showing that Western Exploration projects down below us. To the south, they've got the Gravel Creek and Wood Gulch on the right-hand side of the picture, and the Dobie Gorge on the left. What you can see there is that those trends, we believe, then extend up and then converge within the Cobb Creek project. So we've got the opportunity of that's where the epithermal opportunities are coming from, and also the carbonate, because the Gravel Creek Gravel Creek is epithermal, Dobie Gorge is carbonate. So we've got those two systems coming up and then converging in Cobb Creek, which is basically giving us that great opportunity for those different styles of mineralizations. If I move on quickly onto then, again, you touched on this, Anthony, which is that central concealed target. So we made a release on this about a month ago. As I said earlier, when we inherited the project, or when we purchased the project, there is a number of targets there. I think there's about 11 that we're permitting at the moment. So we'll be looking at drilling up to 11 targets this season. However, there's one that's really just jumping out at us and saying this, the drill me, and that's that central concealed target. So the interesting things that I can see from that, which you can see in the image that I'm showing there, you can see McCall is just sitting to the side of where that target is. You can't necessarily see it on the drawing, but there's a cap that's a volcanic cap that's come in over where that target is. So, and that's also where McCall sort of sits on the side of that cap. It's not over the cap. So we're believing that there's that cap has then concealed the target, hence the name Central Concealed Target, which is why then McCall hasn't extended into that area in the past. One of the history that we've got there in Nevada is, again, just relaying it back to what I think that Kalgoorlie and that Western Australian example is the fact that WA, if you look back 15 years ago, everyone was saying all the gold's been found out here. That's obviously not the truth. There's lots of gold to be found, but most of it now is undercover. So what we're looking at there is a prime example of that in Nevada, where we believe that there's some gold being found. The likes of BHP have moved on because they've found the stuff that was at surface, but they've not then tested anything below that. So the historic drilling at McCall and around the rest of the project has been nothing sort of greater than 100 meters. So that cap that we're looking for is about 100 meters. So there's some promise there. The other things that we can see in that image there is that there is some real pathfinder minerals being shown. So there's a halo of thallium in the soil that you can see in that's that purple. And then we're also seeing a great gravity low there, which is that black dashed dot, which again is common for those carbonate hosted deposits. And then we're also seeing rock chips around just on the extremes of that cap as well, with some good grades of gold and silver in them. So again, everything's pointing towards there's something under that cap, and we're very keen to try and find out what that is. So to work out what is there, we've done the gravity surveys. We've got some IP surveys that are planned. So we'll run a few lines across that. We'll run a couple across McCall to see what extensions we might have there. We'll run one across that central target, and then we'll run another one across some of those other targets that we've got, with the aim to really define where our best chances of striking gold are. And then that will then lead on to the end of the year, where we will look for putting some drill holes in to prove that resource up. So that's really that's sort of the main areas that I wanted to. I've got loads more that I can say, but I won't bore everyone with the presentation. But we're really taking a really disciplined approach on how we go about this. As I said, we've got 11 targets. I don't want to just go in and put drill holes on 11 targets. If I was BHP, I would, but unfortunately, we don't have the balance sheet that will allow us to do that. So we're taking a really conservative approach and putting that IP surveys in to make sure that those holes that we do put in have got the best chance of success. So we've got that targeting coming in with the permit approvals. Now, we were lucky that the permitting had been started when we took over the project. And that permitting is due to be finished towards the end of August, which is great, which will allow us to get the end of this drilling season for that drilling. And then obviously the drilling, and then any follow-up drilling or resource extension that we'll do. So we're looking at quite a few catalysts coming our way. Hopefully that will be then reflected in some shift in the share price in the near term. That's it for the presentation, Anthony. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I will hand back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lucas. It's a good presentation. One of the questions that's come in from the audience is any updates on funding? And I'll sort of put that into also you've also done some corporate streamlining. It looks like you're extracting some value in Brazil and also Kalgoorlie. So could you talk a little bit to that as far as, and also to the funding question?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll be blunt. I think there's a lot of junior minings, and to be honest, I think we were part of this as well, is that we had too many projects on our books. It was ridiculous the amount of money that we needed to spend to keep those projects. I think it's a symptomatic of a lot of junior mining companies. So the work we've been doing over the last 12 months is really just to streamline that and get rid of those non-core assets that really are just draining our balance sheet and not actually giving us any value. So That's number one. We are very, very lean now. Our outgoings are very small. So if we were to basically just sort of put the shutters down and just honk it down, we can last for a long time on a sort of the smell of an oily rag. It's not what I want to do. I want to keep drilling and keep those catalysts going. So the shareholders would have seen our quarterly report come out, which had, I think from memory, we had about $600,000 in the bank, which is not a lot. But as I said, we can live on that for some time. So funding is going to be something that we're going to be looking for in the future. I don't want to be doing that now. The share market is not a good place to be raising capital right now. So we're looking at other options for funding. So we're looking at bringing in some potential cornerstone investors at the project level who will give us fair value for the project. Unless the market wants to value the project at where I think it is, then the share market has said is not where I want to go and get funding. I don't want to be diluting shareholders. So we're looking at lots of different options for funding. So one of them being bringing in some stakeholders at that project level to fund at that stage. That does a couple of things for us in the fact that we have really established ourselves in Nevada, and we've got a load of other projects really that we could really get our foot onto that I think have got some great potential. But I don't want to get back into that position that we were in 12 months ago where we've got too many outlays and not enough going on. So what I would like to do is get that backing for Cobb Creek and the two other projects that we've got in Idaho, get those moving along, and then prove to either individuals who are or high net worth individuals who are interested in coming at project level who might want to help fund us projects going through, or get a little bit more faith from the share market and the ASX and get that share price up where it should be, and then look at potentially going to the market then. But for me, look, shareholder money is extremely valuable. I don't want to go to the market if I can help it. I'll look for as many other better, cheaper forms of funding before going to the market. So that's where we sit at in the funding level. Yes, anyone that's seen our quarterly knows that we need funding. We do have money coming in from the sale of Scanty and through the sale of Kalgoorlie, which will definitely improve our balance sheet and allow us to continue doing what we're doing at the moment, IP, etc., which is great. But if we want to do larger scale sort of secondary drilling and so on, then we need different funding. Where that will come from will be up to me and the board to work out where the best source of that funding is.
Yeah. Okay. Is it worth talking a bit about the other two projects briefly and where you are from a priority perspective with them, or what's still making them look attractive in the US?
Yeah, so definitely. Thanks, Anthony. I didn't mention them in the presentation because Cobb Creek is our flagship project.
Yeah.
But those other two projects are looking still very interesting to us. So that's the Colorado Gulch project and the Silver Star project in Idaho. Colorado Gulch in particular, we have done some field reconnaissance just recently on that. We've got some rock chip samples that are looking quite interesting that have gone for assay that we're looking to get back soon and hopefully prove up a little bit more potential in those areas. We'll weigh up at that when that information in on what the prospectivity of those projects are. They are sort of a little bit more field than Cobb Creek, but they're in the right area, they're in the right positions. They're sort of a lot more silver in those deposits in what we're seeing than there is in Cobb Creek, and silver is quite an interesting precious metal at the moment. So we'll weigh those up probably in the next month or two on where our plans are for those, and at that stage we'll let the market know a little bit more on what our plans are. Again, I don't want to be holding projects that aren't going to be bringing value into the company. So I'm not going to hold on to them if they're not. So the first one off the rank will be Colorado Gulch, and hope to get something to the market in the next month or two, which will basically outline our strategy going forward on that. And then Silver Star is probably back towards the early part of or the end of this year. We'll make some decisions again, depending on how we're going with Cobb Creek and the drilling.
Okay. Another question that's come in from the audience is about Jarrett Canyon coming back online next year. do you see, what is your view on whether the district or the area would be consolidated into a bigger property, I guess?
Property. Oh, absolutely. The opportunity is there. We've reached out to Jerritt Canyon. We've also reached out to Western Exploration and looking at ways that we could potentially be part of a larger project. Look, Jerritt Canyon, the reason that they went into care and maintenance mode was because they were getting into deeper, lower grade or deeper gold that wasn't of grade that was allowing them to continue their operations. So they're definitely, and they're pumping a lot of money into exploration at the moment to allow that plant to open and to continue. So look, we're just up the road, as I said, from then. So there's some huge opportunities from it, from Jerritt Canyon or First Majestic's potential. Yeah, so look, that is definitely an area that we're investigating. It makes perfect sense to us. And when I say sort of that, those people or entities coming in at project level, then they're definitely those projects and those companies are high on my list for trying to encourage that. So look, the potential is huge, and we're hopeful that something can come of that.
I have a question on Nevada as a jurisdiction. Does it take from, say, initial discovery to the point of mining? Is there or production? Is there a several year sort of wait, or does it take a shorter amount of time than it would in Western Australia to get to that point?
It is again. It always depends. There's always a caveat there. I would think that where we are in Cobb Creek, in particular, it is not too bad. The Indigenous issues that issues is probably not the right word, but the Indigenous way that we've got to deal with the Indigenous population in WA can sometimes delay things. There doesn't seem to be that in Nevada, and especially over Cobb Creek. So that's definitely an advantage. There is some restrictions on the environmental restrictions up towards the McCall project that can slow things down, but we're talking about it slowing it down by sort of 12 to 18 months, not sort of slowing it down by multiple years. And that's more based on the bureaucracy in the forestry that we've got to deal with, the Forestry Commission that we've got to deal with. Like so many other areas of government around the world, I would say they're understaffed. So it's literally just a matter of taking time for them to get through the applications, as opposed to them being any more onerous than they would be, say, in Australia or any other jurisdiction. But so no, Nevada is probably a little bit quicker and easier than it is here in WA, in my opinion, and definitely one of the reasons why I was keen to move over to Nevada as opposed to staying in WA. So yes, we're looking at trying to get things done quickly and get gold out of the ground while the price is high as it is.
Yeah. I know you touched on some of the milestones or catalysts that that are upcoming, but is there any one of those that excites you the most as far as looking forward to the results?
Yeah, well, obviously drilling is the most exciting. That's where the big catalysts are, and that's really where you're proving with the most amount of accuracy that what's under the ground. The IP earlier, though, I'm really looking forward to that because that's imminent. It doesn't cost too much as well, which is always nice. So I am looking forward to that IP just to prove what we're already seeing. But I think I'd be disappointed if it said anything other than what we already know, that IP. It's more just targeting exactly where the hole should go. So yeah, definitely the drilling is the most exciting thing that I'm looking forward to.
And another question that's come in from the audience is, given how deep Big Springs is, would SNM also benefit from looking at the upside of near-surface oxides at Cobb Creek?
Absolutely. That's we are, as I said, we've got 11 targets there, and we have just actually finished another round of surveys on the ground there, rock chip samples and so on, which in the process of, they're still in transit at the moment, and I haven't had the report back from the geologist that we had out there, but his initial thoughts were all very promising. So we are looking at oxide material and quite shallow. So as I said, even sort of all the drilling that's been done is only been shallow drilling, and most of it has actually been done in McCall area. So those targets aren't necessarily deep. As I said, I talked about that andesite, that volcanic cap. It isn't over the entire project area. It's pretty much over that central concealed target area. If we come down further south to that, there is areas at surface that we believe that will have never been drilled and need drilling. So look, yeah, there's definitely potential for oxide material at surface that we can then feed into that Jarrett Canyon mill straight away. And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for First Majestic, but if I was First Majestic, I'd be very keen to get hold of that ore and so that they can put it through their mill very quickly.
Also, another question that's come in is, and I'm sort of have to interpret a bit here, but why do you think BHP didn't go for a JORC compliant MRE?
I can only speculate. It's like, I'm trying to think of their acronym. So at that stage, so this is in the late 90s that this was drilled.
Oh, okay.
So, and it was BHP, a US subsidiary of BHP. So I'm assuming they were doing it to the standards that they required at that time. So look, I can't speak to them, what they were thinking at the time, but that was quite commonplace back in the 90s from what I understand.
Okay. Given your major focus on the US now, would you ever consider relisting into the US?
Absolutely. There's definitely potential there, and we are keeping an eye on whether that would be good for the company or not. Obviously, that brings in some additional costs, so I wouldn't want to do that until the share price was in a better position, and I wouldn't do it until we're probably a little bit further on in that development curve. So potentially after the drilling results, and when they come back positive, which I hope they do, I think we'll be in a better position to make a decision on whether we relist. But it's definitely something that's on the radar.
Yeah. Do you feel you need to be the operator, or at some point would you be willing to, as far as when it comes to looking at shareholder value and crystallizing the value of the projects, would you consider staying the operator, or would you step back and
Yeah. So my thoughts at the moment, and this is my thoughts, is not a discussion actually that I've had the luxury of having with the board recently, but I can interpret what they're probably what they're thinking from the discussions that we've had, is that our priority really is to get the resources proven up and to add value to the company as it is, and get it to potentially to a JORC compliant resource, and then weigh up our options at that stage. So we are not set up as a developer. I personally have got a development background, so I'm quite comfortable working in that place. But the company itself is not. We are a junior explorer, so we're looking at getting the most value out of our exploration business, which would be to define a resource, and then, like I said, look at deals with the likes of Big Springs, Western Exploration, Jarrett Canyon would probably be the quickest way to get value out of these projects. However, if things change in the time it takes us to get to that resource, and the shareholders are starting to support and looking towards wanting us to develop, then I personally have absolutely no issue at going down that track. But that decision will have to be made at that time.
Okay. And the questions also come in about the board of directors, and hoping you could introduce them and give it a little background to us on them.
Yeah, sure. So starting with the chairman, David Wheeler. So I have a very good relationship with David. In fact, it's probably one of the best parts about working for USM, and the structure that we've got is that David and I have a fantastic relationship. He's constantly challenging me just constantly challenging me, and I think I am him. We bounce ideas off each other all the time on the best direction for the company to take. So David he's a director of a number of companies listed on the ASX, for not all in mining, but number of companies, very experienced person, has a good relationship with CPS, so our corporate advisors and brokers. So that always helps. So David is talking to CPS regularly to keep them up to speed on what the board's decisions and so on are for Union Star Metals. So that's definitely helpful. So yeah, he's a very experienced person at that board level in junior companies and medium-sized companies on the ASX. So a real asset to have. Joe Graziano is similar. So Joe's been with the company ever since I have joined, so 18 months, and prior to that as well. So PVW, which was the sort of the pre-incarnate of USM. Joe was one of the board members of PVW and now USM. He's accounting, so he's also our company secretary and CFO. So he brings that finance background to USM. He's also a director of a number of other ASX listed companies, so has a great deal of experience at making sure that we are compliant with everything that we do, and that's his main duty. Really, is ensuring that we are compliant, which we've never had. It's been good. We've never fallen foul of ASX or anything like that, which is great. And then probably the newest member of the board is Martin Walter, or Marty. So Marty brings a great deal of experience in Nevada and Northern America. He's based over in Toronto. In fact, he was one of the vendors of the Southern Prospecting projects and Cobb Creek in particular. So he got some shares through that vend and then is on the board as a result of that, but which is a welcome addition there because of his experience in North America and contacts and so on. And he will be instrumental if and when we go and look at that dual listing over in the States or even in Canada. So Marty's a businessman. He's been around the traps for a long time and brings a lot of that knowledge of those American markets to the board.
Good. I think that's probably a good place to close up the webinar. But thank you very much, Lucas. It looks like you've got some you've streamlined and narrowed the focus of the company to make it so it knows what it's going to do going forward, and looks like there's some pretty exciting times ahead for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate that.
You.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just say that look, my phone number is on all of any releases that we make. Any shareholders or potential shareholders that would like to contact me, please feel free to pick up the phone. I do screen calls, so if I don't recognize the number, I may not pick up. But if that's the case, just send me a text, say who you are, and I'll give you a call straight back. But please, I'd much rather take a call from you than read a comment on hot copper that's not necessarily fully informed. But yeah, my door's always open to shareholders, and it's been great to have this opportunity. Thanks, Anthony.